Alrighty, folks, we have a ton to get to today on the show. We're going to bring you everything from the LA fires. We are also going to be talking about the Jimmy Carter Memorial, at which Donald Trump obviously dominated the proceedings, plus a review of the worst movie I have seen in, 5 years. It is also being touted as the probable Academy Award Best Picture winner. We'll get to all that. First, a reminder, all of us here at the Daily Wire will be live as DW goes to D.C. for the inauguration of President Donald Trump. Watch live and join the fight at dailywire.com/subscribe. All right, so the latest in Los Angeles, the death toll has now risen to 10 after 3 days of raging wildfires, according to the Wall Street Journal. At least 5 infernos were burning simultaneously around Los Angeles, engulfing entire neighborhoods, destroying more than 10,000 structures, upending daily life in a historic disaster. You're talking about tens of thousands of acres that have been burned. You're talking about thousands of structures that have been burned as well. We are now starting to learn that at least one of these fires was almost certainly arson. It would be shocking if many of these fires weren't arson, actually, because one of the problems when you have a big wildfire like this in California is that very often you end up with copycats who then want to see what happens if you light a fire in the middle of high winds. And so, obviously, you're talking about massive, massive damage. Economic losses from the blazes, according to the Wall Street Journal, have been estimated in the tens of billions of dollars. Tens of thousands of people have been displaced. 200,000 people are without power across the wider Los Angeles area. Almost 400,000 people were under mandatory evacuation orders, according to Robert Fenton Jr., regional administrator at FEMA. Pacific Palisades has essentially been burned to the ground. Fire has destroyed or damaged some 5,300 homes, businesses, and other buildings. The footage from above is absolutely shocking. Fox News' Jonathan Hunt was on the ground describing flattened LA neighborhoods that he says resemble bombed-out World War II cities.
We're seeing a very different day to yesterday. Yesterday was a day of terror. It was a day of fighting. It was a day of struggling simply to survive for many people. Today is more a day of reckoning and a day of recognition of exactly what this fire did. And as you take a look at this one home in the heart of the Pacific Palisades, that is the end result for hundreds and hundreds of homes. It really is quite breathtaking when you look at this and you look at entire neighborhoods that have gone. I think when people say it's like a war zone, it's a terrible comparison. There is nothing like a war zone other than a war zone, having been to a few of those. But when you look at the pictures and the aerial pictures that I know you've seen of some of the neighborhoods here, it does remind me of some of those pictures from World War II and English cities during the Blitz, completely and utterly flattened.
Thursday afternoon, there was yet another fire that broke out in the West Hills neighborhood of the San Fernando Valley. This one almost certainly was arson. It quickly grew to nearly 1,000 acres. New evacuation orders and warnings were issued. The wind conditions remained very problematic. One of the big issues here is that even after all of this is over, even after these fires have been contained, it's going to be hell to rebuild all of this stuff. Many of these homes were not fully insured because it turns out it's difficult to actually get fire insurance in California and in Los Angeles in particular, thanks to regulatory hurdles and thanks to cost of insurance. Also, the rebuilding of these homes, particularly in places like Malibu, Pacific Palisades, that's going to get tangled up in red tape for years because this is how California does development. You're going to have years-long efforts to rebuild these homes that are tangled up in all of the environmentalist bureaucracy that prevents you from building an additional bedroom in your home in Malibu. So all those people who vote Democrat and live in Malibu, they're about to find out the hard way what it means when you actually have to work through all of the bureaucracy that has hampered the daily life of Californians for years. FEMA Administrator Deanna Criswell says, we know it's going to take a long time to get the debris out. We know this recovery is going to be complicated, but it is doable. Karen Bass is suggesting that she's going to try to clear red tape to aggressively rebuild affected areas. But again, how much that's going to be followed as time goes on is anybody's guess. Some of the estimates right now suggest the LA wildfire would be the costliest in American history. One JP Morgan analyst has estimated total economic losses at close to $50 billion. Huge, insane numbers, obviously. And people who live in California are apoplectic. I mean, it's for reasons like this, the poor running of the state, that I left the state, that we took our business, the Daily Wire, with us, that we took dozens of employees, almost 100 employees from California, that I moved my family from California, that my in-laws moved from California, that my parents moved from California. The mismanagement in California is dramatic. And It doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat or a Republican in California today. There's only one party that has been running this state for decades at this point. And so if you don't like the way public policy is being done, there's only one party you get to point at. This is a point that's being made by Anna Kasparian over at the Young Turks. She tweeted out, California and especially LA is controlled by Democrats. They are responsible. No more passing the buck. Our mayor, who was in Ghana as fires exploded in our city, cut the fire budget by $17 million. Endless amounts of money funneled to bleep scammer homeless nonprofits. We're the highest taxed, yet we have encampments and squalor everywhere. Even worse, we don't have enough firefighters to respond to the absolute disaster we're experiencing right now. Rather than conserve the record rain we got last year, we just drained it into the ocean. We're a failing city run by a sick excuse for local government. You want to radicalize people against the modern Democratic Party? Send them to LA. Again, I'm friendly with Anna Kasparian. Anna's honest. That is a correct take. This is being mirrored, obviously, by people who are native Californians, ranging from Mel Gibson, who lost one of his homes in California to the wildfires, to Joe Rogan, who, of course, used to operate out of California before he moved his offices to Austin, Texas. Here are Rogan and Mel Gibson going after Gavin Newsom, the grease-haired governor of California.
We were just talking about the wildfire situation and how crazy it is that they spent $24 billion last year on the homeless.
Yeah.
And what did they spend on preventing these wildfires?
Zero.
Zip.
And in 2019, I think Newsom said, I'm going to take care of the forests and maintain the forests and do all that kind of stuff. He didn't do anything.
And then on top of that, they cut the water off.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's all funny. And then I think all our tax dollars probably went for Gavin's hair gel. I don't know, but it's like, it's sad. It's like the place is just on fire.
Well, the whole state is just so poorly managed. It's so frustrating and confusing. And then he gets on TV and pretends like everything's great. Mm-hmm. And California's the best. We have the best state. We have the most amazing economy. And like, you're out of your mind, dude. You've ruined this state. Like, personally ruined it.
Well, it's the same team that was up in San Francisco, and then they came down to L.A., and they're doing what they did in San Francisco. And
yeah,
San Francisco's kind of like apocalyptic now,
It's true. All of this is true. As the editors at the Free Press put it this morning, California loves to spend, increasingly moving toward a model of governance where good money consistently chases after bad. Newsom has spent some $22 billion to combat homelessness since he took office, and yet there's been a 3% increase in homelessness in the past year. Newsom made California the first state to have its Medicaid program cover illegal immigrants. This blatant sop to progressive activists is now expected to cost Californians $6.5 billion a year. The city of Los Angeles allocated $1.3 billion to combat homelessness last year, although the city comptroller found half the money has gone unspent. The LA Fire Department got a good deal less than that, $837 million, a budget that has since been cut by $17 million. Okay, and by the way, it's not just a matter of that. It's who you staff at these places. In what has to be one of the most insane clips I have ever seen under any circumstances, there's a clip that was being passed around X yesterday of the LA Fire Department Assistant Chief, a woman named Christine Larson, who is a large LGBTQ plus woman. And she is answering the question as to what she would say to someone who says, you don't have the physical capacity to carry my husband out of a burning building. Here's what she says.
You want to see somebody that responds to your house, your emergency, whether it's a medical call or a fire call, that looks like you. It gives that person a little bit more ease, knowing that somebody might understand their situation better. Is she strong enough to do this? Or you couldn't carry my husband out of a fire, which my response is, he got himself in the wrong place if I have to carry him out of a fire.
What the actual F? That is the most insane. They put that out as a promo. That is the most insane thing I have ever seen. Like, truly, one of the most insane things I've ever seen right there. This person is the assistant chief of the LA Fire Department saying openly, being asked, can you carry my husband out of... Now, the proper answer would be, I can do anything a man can do. But this person's too honest, this Christine Larson. Instead, she says, well, my first question would be, he put himself there in the first place, didn't he? Excuse me? You are literally a firefighter. It is your job to carry people out of burning buildings, not to blame. Her whole shtick there is you need to have sympathy for the people who are in the midst of a tragic situation like a fire, which is why you need people who look like you. A dumb argument, but at least an argument that lives somewhere in the general vicinity of rationality. But the same person who's saying empathy is saying if there's a dude who's, say, in a wheelchair and couldn't get out, and I cannot get him out, well, it's his own fault. He put himself there. The left-wing argument, which is if it's my responsibility, it's your fault, it applies across the board. Carrying that man out of that building is her responsibility, but it's your fault. Well, perhaps you feel unprotected by, law enforcement and the people who are supposed to protect you after listening to that LA Fire Department assistant chief. I mean, I feel less protected, but here's the thing. Going online unprotected is like leaving your door unlocked when you leave your house. Maybe you trust some of your neighbors, but what about the creepy guy down the block? What about delivery drivers and random strangers? Do you trust everybody? With ExpressVPN, you can stay safe online without having to trust any random strangers. Here's the thing. Your internet service provider can see every single website you visit. And no, switching to incognito mode doesn't do the trick to keep your information private or secure. Unfortunately, in the United States, they can legally sell that information about all the websites you visit to advertisers. That's why I always use ExpressVPN. It reroutes all your traffic through secure encrypted servers so your ISP can't track your browsing history. I use ExpressVPN every day, especially when I'm working on the go or traveling. Just open the app, one click, I know my data is now protected. It works on all my devices seamlessly, phone, laptop, tablet, everything, so it's no surprise it's rated #1 by both CNET and The Verge. Protect your online privacy today. Visit expressvpn.com/Ben. That's expressvpn.com/Ben. You can get an extra 4 months for free. expressvpn.com/Ben to get started. Protect yourself the way I do. expressvpn.com/Ben. Also, have you ever wanted to enhance your shooting experience, but you were put off by the mountain of paperwork involved in getting a suppressor? Well, I've got news that's going to make your day. Silencer Shop has streamlined the entire process, so you can start your suppressor journey from the comfort of your favorite armchair. Now, before you ask, yes, suppressors are completely legal. But hold on to your hats, it gets even better. Approvals are coming back faster than ever. That means you could be enjoying your new suppressor in just a few days. There's never been a better time to get a suppressor. And Silencer Shop doesn't just make getting silencers easy, they're out fighting the good fight for our gun rights. In these unpredictable times, it's crucial to support companies that stand up for the Second Amendment. They're actively lobbying, battling in courtrooms, pushing back against anti-gun legislation nationwide. So if you've been putting off getting a suppressor because you thought the process was too complicated, it's time to think again. Silencer Shop has eliminated all the excuses. Whether you're a seasoned shooter or you're new to the game, don't let paperwork stand between you and a better shooting experience. Your ears and your future self will thank you. A big thank you to Silencer Shop for making this episode possible. Again, go check them out right now over at Silencer Shop. They've eliminated all excuses for making the move. Go check them out right now, Silencer Shop. Okay, the same thing, by the way, is true for the left when it comes to criminality. It is your responsibility not to commit a crime. But if you do commit a crime, it's probably somebody else's fault. Because in the end, for the left, responsibility must be destroyed. Responsibility must be destroyed in the name of a better society. And if everything burns down, I suppose everything burns down. That woman, by the way, is the head, I believe, of the DEI department of the LA Fire Department, allegedly making somewhere in the neighborhood of $400,000 a year in taxpayer money. But what's going wrong in LA, they asked. This is so crazy. That's so crazy and evil, by the way. That is an evil statement. It is evil to say, can you carry this man out of the burning building? Literally your job. I'm sorry, did he get himself put there well, it's his fault he's there. The hell is wrong with you people? The hell is wrong with you? Seriously. If this is how you choose to run the system, then that's on you, I suppose. Perhaps this should be a wake-up call to people voting for this kind of trash in the face of actual real life. Adam Carolla went off on all of this yesterday, my friend Adam Carolla. Here he was going off on California and LA city governance.
You guys all voted for Karen Bass, the mayor of Los Angeles. You all voted for Gavin Newsom. And now you get what you get. Oh, now that your house is on fire, well, now you're thinking about something else. Now you want to know what's going on. What's going on around here? All these people who were deep blue Democrats are now going to have to pull a permit to rebuild. And when they start running into the bureaucracy and the red tape, they're going to start going nuts, and they're going to vote for Rick Caruso next time because they want to get. That's all Trump says is we're going to pull back the regulations.
Okay, by the way, this is correct. Democrats govern these places like trash, which is why people leave. And it's all fun and games until their house is on fire. And then it ain't fun and games anymore. Meanwhile, the LA mayor, Karen Bass, she was calling for unity. Yeah, this is always the move when you've done an awful job. Here's Karen Bass, the LA mayor. And it is amazing. This person was nearly picked as vice president of the United States by Joe Biden in 2020. That's how bad the Democratic Party is. Here she is calling for unity.
Thank you, Supervisor. One voice, that is the way we speak, and that is the way we stand here united. Los Angeles will stand united and stand strong.
Well, I mean, I feel better, don't you? She was, in fact, confronted by a reporter seeking an explanation for what was going on, and she got pretty tense about it.
My question to you is, what explains this lack of preparation and rapid response?
Let me just say, first and foremost, my number one focus, and I think the focus of all of us here with one voice, is that we have to protect lives, we have to save lives, and we have to save homes. Rest assured that when rest assured, let me finish. Rest assured, when that is done, when we are safe, when lives have been saved and homes have been saved, we will absolutely do an evaluation to look at what worked, what didn't work, and to correct or to hold accountable any body, department, individual, etc.
Unreal. How about we screwed up? Because clearly you did. Now, speaking of one of the big screw-ups of our generation, Gavin Newsom. Remember, Gavin Newsom was widely touted as a possible replacement for Joe Biden before they shoveled Kamala Harris in there to lose to Donald Trump. Well, Gavin Newsom was traipsing around Southern California, pretending to give a bleep about what was going on down there. You know, I guess that his reservation at the French Laundry was later in the evening. There he was walking around looking like a bad guy from a 1980s movie, which is his typical look, right? He's got on like the aviator shades and he's got his hair slicked back and all this kind of stuff. And a woman who was lost her home rushes up to him and says, so what exactly is it that you would say you do here? Like, what is your policy? Gavin Newsom then lies to her. He says, I'm on the phone with Joe Biden. And she's like, okay, put it on speaker. And he's like, well, I mean, I'm not on the phone with Joe Biden. Here's how this went for Gavin. Like, the idea that this person ever could have been president is insane. And it should have been insane from the get-go. Because Gavin Newsom is a terrible governor. He's been a terrible governor for years. Before him, Jerry Brown was a terrible governor. California has had nothing but terrible governors for something like a quarter century at this point. The last half-decent governor in the state of California was Pete Wilson in the 1990s. It's been a while. Well, here's Gavin Newsom making an ass of himself on camera.
Why was there no water in the hydrants, Governor?
That's all literally.
Is it going to be different next time?
It has to be. Has to be. Of course.
What are you going to do?
I'm doing
to
everything
fill the hydrants. I would fill them up personally. You know that.
I literally have.
I would fill up the hydrants myself.
I would. I understand.
But would you do that?
I would do whatever I can.
But you're not. I see do you know there's water dripping over there, Governor? There's water coming out there. You can use it.
I appreciate it. I'm going to make the call to address everything I can right now, including making sure people are safe.
I'd like to make sure you do. Can I have an opportunity to at least tell people you're doing what you're saying you're doing? Could somebody have a contact? Can I have your contact information?
Right now.
Yes, bye. By the way, before that clip, she literally asks him, and he tries to brush her off by saying he's on the phone with Joe Biden. And then she says, okay, can you put it on speaker? And he says, I'm not on the phone with Joe Biden. I've been cut off because of reception. And the willingness, by the way, of Democratic politicians to use their phone as an excuse for not talking with humans is amazing. It truly is. Gavin Newsom, what a wonderful, wonderful man. Meanwhile, Joe Biden did a presser yesterday, and it continued to go well for Joe Biden. You'll recall that at his presser the day before, he announced the birth of his great-grandchild, which is exactly what the suffering people of Southern California were looking to hear from him. Well, yesterday he assured everyone that he knows, that everyone in Southern California wants to know. He says, we are going to keep at it. Yeah, I'm very comforting from the ghost of Christmas past over here.
I also want everyone in Southern California to know we're going to keep at it. We're sticking with this. We expect there may be a temporary break in the winds, but in some areas the winds are likely to continue well into next week. And so we're going to continue to sending everything, literally, every resource we can find that's appropriate to help the governor and the first responders.
Well, I mean, I feel better, don't you? Then Joe Biden, being incompetent, told Kamala Harris to fire away. Yes, by the way, he did this twice during this presser.
Madam Vice President, I know you're directly affected, so you fire away. No pun intended.
Indeed.
Kamala Harris like, I can't believe that I've been having to follow around this moob for 4 years. Seriously, what a ridiculous human being. Meanwhile, the blowback has begun. Here's one Pacific Palisades homeowner saying, LA made kind of a big mistake in electing Democrats for, decades on end.
I think Los Angeles made a mistake. Karen Bass does not serve the interests of LA residents. Some of the decisions are nonsensical, such as cutting $17.6 million from LA Fire Department's budget, but instead prioritizing homelessness, where roughly half of the funds of $1.3 billion was not even spent. And it just doesn't make any sense. Where are her priorities? What is her strategy? Where is the plan? She doesn't have one.
That's true. That's true. Meanwhile, LA County is seeing looting. And so this means that the LA County DA is now warning potential looters. This is Nathan Hochman. He was just elected to replace George Gascon, who is the Soros-funded candidate, the guy who just wanted to let all the criminals out onto the streets. The backlash is beginning.
I want to also make clear to anyone who is thinking about taking advantage of it for their own personal illegal profit, that those looters, those scammers, those people who are going to prey on vulnerable people who are looking to rebuild their lives, that they will actually be arrested, they will be prosecuted, and we will seek maximum punishment against them. Those people who want to take advantage of this tragedy are despicable. And I wanted to send fair warning out to them right now, so there's no misunderstanding about how they will be treated if and when they get caught, prosecuted, and punished.
Yes, maybe the hope for Democratic areas is that Democrats begin to wake up to the bad governance they have brought upon themselves. Well, folks, it's been a bit of a downer of a brand new year thus far, but that can all change soon. One of the things you can change about the new year is focusing on what matters most, creating healthier habits, enjoying more moments with your family, spending less money on going out to eat. GoodRanchers.com is here to help you turn all your resolutions into solutions. When you buy your meat from Good Ranchers, you're directly supporting local farms and ranches in the United States and skipping the chaos and imported meat in the grocery store. Good Ranchers delivers high-quality, 100% American meat straight to your door, so you can start 2025 with better choices, better meals, better moments at home while still enjoying steakhouse-quality meats. The best part? No antibiotics, hormones, or seed oils, so you can feel good about what you're fueling your body with. It also saves you valuable time and money. All the cuts are pre-trimmed and pre-portioned, which makes meal prep really easy on even the busiest of days. They're all individually packaged and vacuum sealed as well, so you have less waste and you never have to throw freeze or burn cuts away again. Remember, visit GoodRanchers.com, use my code BEN, claim $25 off, free express shipping, and your choice of free ground beef, chicken, or salmon in every order for an entire year. If spending more time with family, spending less money on going out to eat, enjoying quality, nutritious American food is on your resolution list this year, well, head on over to GoodRanchers.com, use my code BEN today for meat that delivers just that. GoodRanchers.com, American meat delivered. Also, start 2025 off right. Black Rifle Coffee helps you wake up every morning feeling dialed in and ready to make the most of your day so you can make the best of your year. Now is your chance to get 20% off your purchase with code DailyWire at blackriflecoffee.com. Black Rifle Coffee's explosive coffees are roasted right here in the United States by a veteran-led team of expert roasters who take pride in serving coffee and culture to people who love the country. Every purchase you make helps them further their mission to support veteran and first responder causes. Everything from getting funding and equipment to first responders to helping veterans get medical care. Black Rifle Coffee has a huge selection of dark roasts, light roasts, everything in between. Take the coffee quiz on their website, get matched with a blend perfectly tailored to your specific taste. Again, a portion of every purchase you make with Black Rifle Coffee goes towards supporting veteran and first responder causes. Your money goes a long way toward giving back to those who serve our nation. Head on over to blackriflecoffee.com right now. Use code DailyWire for 20% off America's coffee. That's blackriflecoffee.com, code DailyWire. Go check them out right now. blackriflecoffee.com. Use code DailyWire for 20% off America's coffee. Ron DeSantis yesterday was at a presser, and people were getting very angry at Donald Trump because Donald Trump had been saying mean things about Gavin Newsom. And Ron DeSantis was like, hold up a second. I did hurricane response for the last several years, and Kamala Harris was ripping on me. And let's be clear about this. If this were a Republican who had botched this fire this badly, it would be endless news on a loop on CNN and MSNBC.
The president-elect or a president to be criticizing.
Is it appropriate for people in your industry to try to create division and to try to create narratives anytime these things happen? Now, you're not as interested in doing that because Newsom is a D. If Newsom was a Republican, you guys would go you would have him nailed to the wall for what they're doing over there. And I know we've dealt with it. We just assume in Florida, anytime something happens, it's going to be politicized by the media. So you guys sitting in judgment of Donald Trump, I mean, excuse me, I think your track record of politicizing these things is very, very bad.
I mean, he pointed out during this presser to DeSantis, last time there was a Cat 5 hurricane, Kamala Harris suggested that I wouldn't return her phone calls because I was being a partisan. She'd never called at any other point during a natural disaster. He's right about that. Meanwhile, President Trump, he says, listen, I may not like Gavin Newsom. We'll have to deal with him. He's the California governor. Here was President Trump yesterday.
What's happened is a tragedy, and the governor has not done a good job. With that being said, I got along well with him. When he was governor, we worked together very well, and we would work together. I guess it looks like we're going to be the one having to rebuild it.
I mean, he is right about all of that. He's right about all of that. Okay, speaking of President Trump, yesterday, there was a memorial service for Jimmy Carter in the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. There were some great ironies to this. One of them is that the Pete Hegseth tattoo, the one that has been so terribly, obviously brutal and terrible, the cross tattoo that is supposedly a Christian nationalist tattoo, it turns out that that's actually not that. That's actually just called the Jerusalem Cross, and it's a symbol that was literally used on the invitation for the Jimmy Carter Memorial and was also, etched into the floor of the Washington Cathedral. So there's that. Anyway, this event happens yesterday, and this is all part of the great rewriting of Jimmy Carter's legacy. Jimmy Carter was an awful president and even worse ex-president. Truly a terrible, horrifyingly bad president. A historically bad president. From allowing Iran to fall to the Ayatollahs, to the taking of the hostages, the Iranian embassy, to the collapse of Afghanistan, and allowing the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, to record levels of inflation combined with unemployment. Jimmy Carter was bad about pretty much everything. I mean, truly an awful, awful president. And then as an ex-president, actively lobbying against Ronald Reagan, actively lobbying countries to oppose George H.W. Bush in defense of Kuwait, actively standing for Hamas, for the North Korean regime. Wasn't a dictator on planet Earth Jimmy Carter didn't love. Jimmy Carter was not just a bad president. He was a bad like a terrible expert. But, he was a president, and that means that we now have to rewrite the history. So the Wall Street Journal has a piece titled, Washington Remembers Jimmy Carter, Symbol of a Gentler Era as Trump's Presidency Looms. Symbol of a gentler era? What era are you talking about? 1976 to 19... That was not a gentler era. That was a horrible era in American history. The 1970s were filled with crime. They were filled with poverty. They were filled with inflation. They were filled with war. It was really, really, really bad, actually. Quite terrible. Nonetheless, the rewriting continued apace. According to the Wall Street Journal, the nation's 5 living presidents gathered to honor former President Jimmy Carter in a pomp-filled funeral service at the Washington National Cathedral, a moment of solemn respite from the Capitol's political tensions and preparations for a new administration. So Joe Biden got up and spoke, and the man just does not own a mirror. He does not own a mirror. Here he was explaining that Jimmy Carter reminds us that we have an obligation to stand up against abuse of power, says the president who pardoned his own son. Pardoned his own son, not just for the crimes of which he had already been accused, but of all crimes. Here is Joe Biden, endlessly corrupt president of the United States, talking about abuse of power.
We have an obligation to give hate no safe harbor and to stand up to what my dad used to say is the greatest sin of all, the abuse of power.
Oh, well, great. Stuart Eizenstat, Carter's domestic policy advisor, spoke of Carter's political leadership, which had been tarnished by events including the crisis in which Iran held more than 50 Americans hostage for the last quarter of his presidency. He said Carter restored integrity to government after the Watergate scandal. That's not true, actually. Actually, Gerald Ford did that, which is why Gerald Ford almost won, by the way, in 1976. And then Jimmy Carter got absolutely swamped in 1980. But the sort of fascinating part of this ceremony was the treatment of Donald Trump. So clearly, Donald Trump is not in the good graces of people like the Bush family. The Bush family doesn't like Donald Trump. That, of course, is not a giant shock. Donald Trump was pretty rough on Jeb, and he has effectively called George W. Bush a war criminal and all the rest of this. So they don't like each other very much. And George W. Bush has sort of a history of being cozy with the Obamas. He and Barack are famously sort of friendly, as are Laura and Michelle. And so there was a point at which George W. Bush did not greet the Trumps, but then gave a sort of belly tap to Obama. Here was that. It was W and Laura. And they kind of walk right by the Trumps. Obviously, there's some bad blood there. That's not the only bad blood in the room, by the way. Kamala Harris was there with Doug Emhoff, who, again, I just cannot stand. And she looked back and saw Donald Trump joking with Barack Obama, and the expression on her face, she looks like she wants to just commit an act of first-degree murder. Yeah, that is a very unhappy person right there. By the way, the Bidens and Harrises are also not talking, which is hilarious. Again, all of the sort of gossip channel rumor milling here is really quite fascinating. But the big clip to come out of this was Donald Trump and Barack Obama chuckling together. We have no idea what Trump says here to make Obama chuckle, but he does something. And let's be real. I mean, I know President Trump is a very funny human. Like, he's just a very funny person. And he's constantly joking. He's constantly riffing. And here he says something, and it cracks Obama up. Okay, so was that Orange Hitler, the threat to the Republic that we've all heard about? See, this is the thing. This is the thing when you look at this. When I say that Trump's victory tour is continuing, it is a victory over the idea that Trumpism or MAGA or Donald Trump himself is some sort of Hitlerian authoritarian movement set to dominate the country and destroy all mechanisms of democracy. Right? The thing that really was restored here was, in fact, a sense of normalcy in the last election cycle, because Democrats kept saying over and over and over, this isn't normal. You know what normalcy looks like? You know what normalcy looks like? It looks kind of like Donald Trump and Barack Obama joking around. And it kind of looks like not LA on fire. Like, if you have to choose between Donald Trump making wild statements and things kind of going on as normal and you living your life and things getting handled, and also everybody saying very kind, progressive, and empathetic things, except if your house is on fire, in which case it's your fault, you're stuck there. Well, I think that I'll choose the first. The first seems more normal to me. Donald Trump saying mean things to Gavin Newsom and then the country running seems a lot more normal to me than, entire cities on fire while the LA mayor says DEI things. The left's definition of normalcy is not, in fact, normal. And this is the thing. The left has kept saying over and over, Donald Trump is not normal. He's not normal. It's so not normal. Oh, my God. It's dictatorial. Hitler. Obama is sitting there. Is he laughing at Hitler's jokes? What's happening right there? How could he laugh at Hitler's jokes? That, I think, should be the big takeaway there. Aside from the fact that no one should ever again perform the song Imagine, the worst song in the history of the world. Truly an awful, egregious, immoral piece of trash. And honestly, as one ex-poster suggested, when Garth Brooks and Trisha Yearwood performed Imagine at this memorial service for Jimmy Carter, the luckiest person in the room was Jimmy Carter because he wasn't alive to see it. Here we go.
Imagine no possession.
Oh, this commie atheist terrible song.
I wonder if you care.
It's so bad. Ugh.
No need for greed or hunger.
By the way, this song is militantly anti-religion. They're doing it in the Washington National Cathedral. I can't deal with this song anymore. It needs to stop. It needs to stop. Stop the song. Stop it. Can't do it. Okay, so in any case, President Trump is about to enter office and things are about to change. And that is a very, very good thing. Apparently, he is readying close to 100 executive orders, according to one Republican senator. We'll get into the details of some of those executive orders and what we know at this point in just one moment. First, What is a Woman sparked the cultural conversation. Now, Identity Crisis, a powerful new film from the Daily Wire and Turning Point USA, goes even deeper, exposing the heartbreaking consequences of radical gender ideology while highlighting stories of resilience and courage in the pursuit of truth. Starting now and for the next 72 hours, Identity Crisis is streaming for free on X. We chose to make it free for 72 hours because this is a story everyone needs to see. The raw, unflinching truth about how this dangerous ideology is affecting children and families. Creating bold, premium content like this is not easy. It's costly, it's important, it's essential. That's why the Daily Wire depends on your support to keep reshaping the cultural landscape. Follow @RealDailyWire on X, watch Identity Crisis, share it, and spread the word. We're grateful to our partners at Turning Point USA for putting together this project with us. Actually, a little bit later today, we're going to be dropping a full interview with Charlie Kirk, who, of course, is the founder and the head of Turning Point USA. Here's a little bit of what that interview sounds like. Well, speaking of these gender issues,
Yes.
you guys at TPUSA, you're working with us, we're working with you
We're really
at Daily Wire
excited
Plus
about this.
to release this brand new documentary, Identity Crisis, which is all about the detransitioner movement. Yes. We're really excited about this. It's going to be released on January 10th for free on X for a couple of days, and it goes to Daily Wire Plus exclusively, which we're also very excited about. Tell me about the documentary.
Yeah, we've been working on this for a while, and we're so honored to be partnering with you guys on this. It's perfect partnership. Look, Matt Walsh did What is a Woman? And in some ways, this is not like a sequel, but this is a good accompaniment to that general idea, because this goes deep into the severity and the graphic brutality and the medieval nature of what transitioning actually is. Which is, and in some ways, it is the result of, if you can't answer what a woman is, you're going to start chopping off 12-year-olds' breasts. Then we get into the movie in great detail on the parents that lose their kids through divorce settlements and medical kidnapping. This is not just a one-off thing. This is happening with great detail across the country. And Matt Walsh will say it best, that the T in LGBT really is tyrannical. It is full totalitarian control of your speech, of your children, of your body. And that's what's so interesting, is that it cloaks itself on its surface, the trans agenda, as live and let live.
Okay, meanwhile, so President Trump apparently is going to drop a bunch of executive orders. There is talk that it may be up to 100 executive orders. Most of those are going to be placeholders. It'll be things like closing the border. It's going to be, I assume, some executive orders that open up areas to drilling. He wants legislative fixes, but he first needs to reverse many of the worst executive order decisions made by the Biden administration, obviously. And President Trump is being pretty realistic, and so are his allies, with what exactly he's going to be able to do in his second term. And I think this really matters. I've mentioned this before with regard to the reelection of Speaker Johnson, or with regard to the discussion over what should go into a continuing resolution versus what should not. I think all too often, people in my position, people in the sort of conservative or political commentariat, they conflate two things. One is the principle and one is the pragmatic. And they just assume away the pragmatic. They say, here's what the principle, we want 100% of the pie. And if you don't give us 100% of the pie, you're not doing your job. And that is a lie. It's not true. There are always pragmatic political considerations in a fractious democracy in which Republicans currently control the House by 1 or 2 seats and control the Senate by 3. That means that the policy-making aspect of all this is never going to be quite what you've been promised, because we don't rule by dictatorship here in the United States. And so I, for one, am not particularly disappointed to learn, for example, that Elon Musk has scaled back his ambitious pledge to slash at least $2 trillion from the federal budget. Why? Well, because as I said months ago, that ain't going to happen. And the reason it was never going to happen is because if you wish to slice trillions of dollars from the federal budget, you need to look to the entitlement programs. The discretionary spending is not going to find you trillions of dollars to cut. It is the mandatory spending, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, that need restructuring. No one's going to touch those. And so that means that nothing happens. And so Elon is now being a lot more accurate about that. He said, I think if we try for $2 trillion, we've got a good shot at getting $1 trillion. Okay, well, I'm fine with that. If we get $1 trillion, that'd be great. Meanwhile, President Trump's team has told European officials the true deadline for ending the war in Ukraine is several months, not 24 hours. Well, of course. I mean, again, everybody who's like, oh my God, no. This is the take him seriously but not literally thing. When Trump says 24 hours, it's sort of like when the Bible says, and the land was quiet for 40 years. Was it exactly 40 years, or does it just mean a long time? Like, not totally clear whether these are exact timelines. As long as Trump gets it done and the solution is correct, that's the thing that really, really matters here. Trump has also said it's going to be hard to bring down prices, which is true, but he's going to do it. It will happen. Again, the Axios today is trying to suggest that reality bites Trump, but reality was always going to be part of the gambit. That was always part of this. And you know who knows this? Smart Democrats. So apparently the only smart Democrat in Congress is now John Fetterman. So Fetterman votes with the Democrats like 90% of the time, but he's not a moron. And so that means that he makes bipartisan overtures on particularly popular issues like immigration or, say, the Middle East. Well, now Senator Fetterman is planning to meet with President-elect Trump at Mar-a-Lago. Fetterman said Trump invited him and he accepted. He said, I'm the senator for all Pennsylvanians, not just Democrats in Pennsylvania. I've been clear, no one is my gatekeeper. I will meet with and have a conversation with anyone if it helps me deliver for Pennsylvania and the nation. That's smart. It's good. And now, many of the former Fetterman staffers are really pissed, right? The left has this really nasty habit of suggesting that a conversation with somebody on the right ought to be verboten, just out of the gate. This is true everywhere from my arena in the media, where if you're on the left and you are seen in public with a person on the right, this means you're very bad, to actual elected officials. One former Fetterman campaign staffer said, quote, "This is such a pick-me move by John. I obviously hate it, but it's also kind of hilarious and epic." Well, I mean, why do you hate it? It's smart. It's a smart thing to do. By the way, I have to say, Fetterman reads the room as well as anybody in politics. Really. Like, Fetterman was asked about Donald Trump and Greenland, and he joked that he was hoping to be Pope of Greenland, which is a hilarious line. I'm sorry that, like, he got the assignment. He got the assignment. Meanwhile, Democrats continue to squabble over a path forward. According to Politico, the Democratic Party's top two congressional leaders both agree the party lost big in the election over voters' economic fears and must now overhaul its pocketbook messaging to win again. But some other New York Democrats are not so sure. Interviews with nearly every New York House Democrat reveals variations on where they believe their party's push against Donald Trump should start, underscoring Jeffrey's challenge in leading a Big Tent caucus that ranges from socialists to blue dogs. Some House members are less humbled by their party's election drubbing than others. Some blame messaging. Others blame culture wars, even if the most consistent theme emerging is the urgent need to wrestle back the economic narrative from the Republicans. Well, again, I hope they do that. I hope they keep yelling about how capitalism is bad in a country that generally is not in favor of socialism. Keep doing it, guys. And please keep preaching the wokeness. More of that, please. Meanwhile, two court decisions out yesterday. One good, one very not good. The good decision comes courtesy of a federal judge in Kentucky who struck down President Biden's effort to expand protections for transgender students, according to the New York Times, and make other changes to the rules governing sex discrimination in schools. So you'll remember the Biden administration had idiotically attempted to expand Title IX of the Civil Rights Act to suggest that boys had to go into girls' bathrooms, even though Title IX is specifically designed to protect women. In a 15-page opinion, Chief Judge Danny Reeves of the Eastern District of Kentucky wrote the Education Department could not lawfully expand the definition of Title IX to prohibit discrimination based on gender identity. He said the entire point of Title IX is to prevent discrimination based on sex. Throwing gender identity into the mix eviscerates the statute and renders it largely meaningless. That, of course, is totally true. That is an excellent ruling. It was always a ridiculous overreach by the Education Department under Joe Biden. However, there was another decision that came down yesterday, and this one was not particularly good. This decision was about Judge Merchan and his sentence with regard to President Trump. So the Supreme Court was considering whether or not Merchan's capacity to deliver a sentence on the sitting president of the United States ought to be vacated. Well, a divided Supreme Court yesterday greenlit Judge Merchan's determination to sentence President-elect Trump on 34 business records falsification counts on which he was found guilty in May in that ridiculous prosecution brought by the Manhattan Progressive Democratic DA Alvin Bragg. Well, this morning, Judge Juan Merchan pronounced a sentence of unconditional discharge, which means that there will be no probation, there won't be any sort of home arrest or anything for Donald Trump. He called it the only lawful sentence because, of course, Donald Trump has been reelected to the presidency, and so he can't have any of this sort of stuff applied to him while he's the president. Merchan said, quote, "Sir, I wish you Godspeed as you pursue your second term in office. Thank you." There was a big hearing at the time. The assistant DA, Joshua Steinglass, slammed Trump's, quote, threats to retaliate against prosecutors and all the rest. Does it mean anything? Well, Trump's lawyer called the sentencing a sad day for Trump and the country. The prosecutor did agree with the unconditional discharge. The whole thing is ridiculous and silly. I think everyone sees it that way. It's obviously quite insulting. But beyond the insult, effectively it came to naught. But it is a good reminder. If Donald Trump had not, in fact, been reelected, if in fact Donald Trump had lost to Kamala Harris, Judge Juan Merchan would have hit him with the book. Judge Merchan would have put him under house arrest. He might have had him thrown into jail. Trump was running against the possibility of being arrested for a completely specious non-crime based on his payoffs to Stormy Daniels in 2015, 2016. That's how narrowly we missed a true crisis in the United States. And the number of times they've tried to get Donald Trump, the number of crises that we as a country have narrowly avoided and narrowly averted, the hand of God is on Trump. I mean, I've said it before. When God reaches his hand down and turns Donald Trump's head fractions of a degree and a bullet hits him in the ear, I'm not sure what else to make of that. Well, folks, it is a Friday, and my staff told me that it was mandatory that I watch what will probably win Best Picture this year. You know, I try to keep abreast of the various movies that are nominated for Best Picture, even though there hasn't been a solid Best Picture winner in the Oscars for years and years and years at this point. I'm trying to remember the last solid Best Picture winner. It's been a while. This year, the frontrunner is, believe it or not, a movie called Emilia Perez. This movie was nominated for 10 Golden Globes. It won 4. It is one of the worst movies ever made. It is one of the worst. It won Best Musical over Wicked. Now, you know my feelings on the movie of Wicked. I thought it was pretty good. And I like the musical of Wicked. At least the music is good and interesting. This thing is horrible in every way it is possible for it to be horrible. So I'm going to try and break down this review into a few categories. First, we're going to go through the actual movie, the plot. We'll go through the performances. We'll go through it's a musical. It's a musical. And then we'll get to the blowback. So let me first explain the premise of this unbelievably stupid, insulting, and morally vacuous film. So the premise of this film is that there is a gangland drug leader who is played by a person named Carla Sofia Gascon. Now, Carla Sofia Gascon is a trans woman, which is to say a man. In fact, Carla Sofia Gascon in real life identified as a male until the age of, I believe, 46 years old. And then at the age of 46 in 2018, decided that he was, in fact, a she, and decided to go through all of the various surgeries to make him look more like a her, I would say rather unsuccessfully. In this particular story, Carla Sofia Gascon plays, at the beginning of the film, a Mexican drug lord, like a head of a deadly drug cartel, who decides that it's not just that he wants to disappear and to enjoy his wealth. He wants to disappear and become a woman. He's always wanted to be a woman. The lawyer he ropes into this scheme is played by Zoe Saldana, who is playing a person named Rita Mora Castro. That's the lawyer in this particular film. And she is going to be helping the newly named Emilia Perez become a woman. And now there are complications that ensue. Okay, so the basic plot of the film is reliant on one essential feeling about life. And if you don't buy into this feeling, the entire movie is actually quite evil. That feeling is, if you cut off your balls, this makes you a better person. That is the basic premise of the film. The basic premise of the film is, if you take a genocidally murderous drug lord, and this person wants to feel like a woman inside, and so gets a bunch of surgeries and hormone treatments, when that person emerges on the other side, that person is to be treated as a feminist saint. Otherwise, none of the movie works, and the whole thing becomes rather sinister. Now, you may be saying to yourself, this thing plays like a comedy, and here's the thing, it kind of does. If you watch the film as a comedy, it is uproariously funny. None of it follows. It makes no sense. All the things that are supposed to be serious are hilarious. It is one of the most ridiculous things ever filmed, truly. So, just to give you the basic plot outline, again, drug lord decides to become woman. This drug lord is married to Jessie Del Monte, played by Selena Gomez, legitimately one of the worst actresses alive. I mean, truly cannot act her way out of a paper bag. Inanimate objects have more affect than Selena Gomez. She's awful in literally everything. Okay, so you got the lawyer who's facilitating the transition and post-transition life. You have the drug lord, who is a man who wants to become a woman. You have the drug lord's wife, played by Selena Gomez. You have later the now transgender woman's lover, a person named Epifania Flores, played by Adriana Paz. Hey, so just to spell out how the movie goes, this person goes and gets a transition. The wife and 2 children, who this person is abandoning to have a removal, they move to Switzerland with the drug lord's money. 4 years later, the drug lord, now a transgender woman, approaches the lawyer and says, I would like to get in touch with my kids again. And so I'm going to be pretending to be my own cousin living in Mexico. I'm going to pay my ex-wife and the kids, the wife thinks he's dead at this point, to come live with me in Mexico. Complications ensue because it turns out that the wife has a lover. And not only that, so does Emilia Perez. He, now a she, falls in love with a woman. All of this comes as Zoe Saldana, its character, the lawyer, and Emilia Perez decide that not only is it time for Emilia Perez to return to Mexico as a woman, it is time for Emilia Perez to become an extraordinarily high-scale public figure whose job it is to uncover all of the bodies of people murdered by drug cartels. At no point, by the way, does this drug cartel leader actually apologize to anyone for having, murdered humans. Instead, this person just traipses around explaining that it's very, very bad to kill people and bury their bodies in unnamed places and such. By the end of the film, the drug cartel leader and his ex-wife have died in a car crash, and the children now belong to the lawyer. If you follow all of that, then congratulations to you. Either you have a screw loose or you are great at following absolutely nonsensical plots. Now, this is all accompanied by some of the worst music and some of the worst performances you have ever seen in a film. Truly awful stuff. Really, really awful stuff. So let's go through that. Because in a musical, the music should be good, But in this musical, the music is just absolute sheer unmitigated horse. It's just awful. It was written by a person named Camille, a French singer, and Clément Ducrot, a French film composer. It's absolutely horrifyingly bad. Let me give you some examples. So, as we say, Zoe Saldana's character, who makes no sense, by the way, she's a lawyer who's supposed to be, I guess, a good, nice person, but she's introduced in the film defending a wife murderer and taking $2 million to help a drug cartel leader become a woman, but is supposed to be the moral center of the film, which makes no sense at all. In any case, Zoe Saldana is tasked by Emilia Perez to go find out about transition surgeries and what they mean. Here is some of this musical number. It's so bad you will want to drill into your own ear hole using an electric saw. Here we go.
Hello, very nice to meet you. I'd like to know about sex change operation.
I see. Men to woman, or woman to men.
Man to woman.
From penis to vagina. Is it for you?
For me?
What would you like to know about it, madam?
I want to know it all. What is the protocol, the techniques and the risks? How many operations? How much time do you need?
Mammoplasty.
Yes.
Vaginoplasty.
Yes.
Rhinoplasty.
Yes.
Laryngoplasty.
Yes.
This is a thing that's happening in your life right now. Just don't try to fight it. Just soak it in.
Yes.
Control laryngoplasty.
What is that?
Adam's apple reduction.
Yes.
I guess. Oh my God. Oh, good Lord. And it's all creepily staged. So you have people who have bandages all over their faces and bodies being wheeled around. By the way, worst hospital ever. Gotta say, terrible hospital. No patient privacy happening around here. Also, no actual measures taken to reduce the risk of infection, it appears. In any case, Zoe Saldana points for effort in this film. She's obviously trying to do something. I don't know what it is she's trying to do. Her character's awful. She's a corrupt lawyer who takes millions of dollars from a drug cartel leader to cover up crimes and then later turns around and uncovers the crimes while lecturing people in another number. That number is called El Mal. And this is where Zoe Saldana really goes off in the film. She's dancing through a fundraiser because I say Emilia Perez has decided that now, having come back to Mexico, she is going to be leading an effort to uncover the bodies of all those murdered by the drug cartels. So now, the lawyer for a drug cartel leader is running around the room yelling at all the politicians about how they're all corrupt while doing sexually suggestive things. That's essentially this number. The hypocrisy is amazing. And again, you might at some point say, well, wait, hold on. Isn't she evil? She works for a drug cartel leader. And isn't the drug cartel leader kind of evil? I mean, on every level, a drug cartel leader murdered people, abandoned his wife and children to go get a bunch of surgeries, then lied to his wife and children by bringing them back into his life to torture them, which we'll see in just a minute, emotionally. Here is Zoe Saldana in another awful number called El Mal. Look at Judge Santos. There's good music here, guys. Cares only about children. Cartels kidnap them, steal them from their villages. And Santos has their cases dismissed. No evidence. Talk. All these people talk. But now they are going to pay. I have no idea who choreographed this. Choreography sucks. The lighting is terrible. The choreography is terrible. There is no music. You have the upper hand. Everyone knows you. No one knows me. This is the singing man pretending to be a woman. I'm Emilia Perez, a Mexican woman. A woman like any other. Okay, and then it just continues. I can't take anymore. It's just awful. Just awful. Like immoral, bad. You're part of the system, lady. You took the money. You don't get to lecture. Okay, anyway. Again, this entire film is built around the premise that if you are transgender and you go through surgeries, this makes you a good person and excuses all of your past and future behavior. Because let's talk about that behavior. Now, Emilia Perez, who is a man who has transitioned into a fake woman and who is lying to her own children, about identity. There's a number where Emilia Perez goes into the bedroom of one of her children, her, meaning his, and lies down next to this child that can't fall asleep. And the kid says, "You smell like my father." Okay, well, yeah, because you effed up that kid's life beyond all recognition. First of all, you're a drug lord. Second of all, you deprived that kid of a father so that you could play dress up. Plus, by the way, the lyrics absolutely suck in this particular number. I mean, really suck. I will explain why in just a moment. He says, "What are you doing?" And the kid says, "You smell like Papa." I love it.
¿Lo extrañas?
Sí. Papá. Hueles como
He says, "You smell like Papa. You smell like the mountains, leather and coffee. You smell like food, spicy. And here is the man dressed up as a woman who has put his child through this, and we're supposed to be sympathetic to this person for some reason. This person's, by the way, by the end of this movie, this person is treated as a saint. Okay, now I'll tell you why the lyrics really suck here. I'm just going to list to you the things this person apparently smells like. Okay? And this kid is apparently like a super smeller, because here is what Papa smells like. In order: the mountains, leather, coffee, spicy food, sugar, lamb on the fire, the engine, Diet Coke with lemon ice and sweat. Also, little stones warmed by the sun, mint, mezcal, guacamole, dogs on car rides, cigarettes. I don't know. What? Okay, man. Tell you, who wrote this? This whole musical was written by a person who'd been hit in the head with a brick. My goodness. But all of this culminates in a heroic vision of the future. So, as we know, the Emilia Perez's character falls in love with a woman, like an actual biological woman, played by Adriana Paz. And they have a whole love scene and everything. And at this point, you might be thinking to yourself, well, isn't that kind of... I mean, this obviously is a dude, meaning like a drug lord gang leader who has murdered people, maybe including this person's husband, and is currently having a sexual affair with the woman without explaining any of this. Isn't that a little... Like ladies in the audience, isn't that a little bit? But it's fine and good. Now, it's actually excellent. And so by the end of this film, there is a full scene. The end of the film is a parade with a statue looking like the Virgin Mary of this trans woman, drug cartel leader, who engaged in mass murder and was never prosecuted for it, and betrayed his wife and children. And this person is a saint now, because that's how the politics work here. Because I dedicate this poem to the beloved, so loved, for a fleeting instant, to the woman of my nights. You mean a dude? And I guess the one who left at dawn, never speaking about herself. Yeah, because she was a dude and a drug cartel leader to boot. To she who drank from my fountains, whose mystery I miss. Marching with like a full-on saint statue of this person, like a distant star. Oh my God. Again, the whole thing, understand, this whole musical turns on one fundamental moral supposition. If you are a person with gender dysphoria and you cut off your genitals or have hormone surgery, this means all sins, past, present, and future, are wiped away. All of them. You can do anything to anyone at any time, and you are fully justified in doing so because you have found your identity. That's the thing that matters most. Actually, they kind of spell that out right in the musical. There is a song called Lady, again, another awful song. This one is performed by Zoe Saldana and a person named Mark Ivanier, who is playing Dr. Wasserman, the genital mutilation specialist, who is the transing doctor. And here is where Zoe Saldana explains the main thesis of the film. There we go.
Lady, you know, I only fix the body, skin, bones, but I will never fix the soul. If he's a he, she'll be a he. If he's a she, she'll be a she. If he's a wolf, she'll be a wolf. If he's the wolf, you'll be his sheep. Lady, I've been a doctor since I'm 24. I fight and fix, will never stop the war. My door is not God's door. Lady, will you please tell your Mr. Mystery, instead of having plastic surgery, he'd better change ID.
Doctor, I know you did a lot of studies. Doctor, but let me say I disagree.
Here we go. Here's the case.
Changing the body changes society. Changing society changes the soul. Changing the soul changes society. Changing society changes it all.
Okay, so that's the actual line, right? That's the actual line. That, sure, this person's still a drug cartel lord who's doing evil things, but it's not about this person. It's about society. Changing society changes the soul, which changes society, which changes the soul, which is circular, but it doesn't matter because bad music. Folks, it's absolutely awful, absolutely egregious. It will be the worst Best Picture winner since Shape of Water. I don't even know if this is worse than Shape. Man, that is a brutal decision. That is the Sophie's Choice of bad movies decisions. Like, which one? You're on a desert island, and you only can watch one of these two movies for the rest of time. Which one? Well, I mean, the third option is to drown yourself, and that may be preferable. All right, in just a second, we'll get to all the societal blowback on this film. There's a bunch of it, by the way. If you're not a member, become a member. Use code Shapiro. Check out for 2 months free on all annual plans. Click that link in the description and join us.